Hey there, island dreamers, locals, and anyone craving a slice of paradise. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time, to the Fun and Key West podcast, where the vibe is always laid back, the stories are salty, and the drinks, well, they're definitely frozen. I'm your host, Michelle O'Connor, your unofficial tour guide to the Conquered Public. Whether you're planning your first trip, your fifth trip, or you're just daydreaming about trading the cubicle for the ocean breeze, you are in the right place. Here's the deal. This podcast is your insider's guide to all things Key West. We're talking where to eat, hello, conch fritters and key lime pie, where to drink, spoiler alert, there will be rum, where to stay, and all the quirky, wonderful things that make Key West the one-of-a-kind paradise we all love. Plus, we'll keep you up to date on the latest happenings, festivals, events, maybe even the occasional Hemingway lookalike sighting. And just to keep things spicy, we'll be bringing on some amazing guests now and then, locals, business owners, and people who know the island like the back of their sandy hand. So grab your flip-flops, pour yourself a cold one, and let's escape to the island state of mind together, whether you're tuning in from your hammock or your commute, while wishing it was a hammock. We've got all the Key West goodness coming your way. Thanks for being here. It's going to be a lot of fun in Key West. Let's dive in. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Historic Marker Monday. I'm Michelle, and because we are knee-deep in the heart of hurricane season, I figured today is the perfect day to talk about Key West's unofficial force field. That's right. There's a legend on the island that as long as a certain grotto stands, no hurricane will ever score a direct hit on Key West. And today we're visiting the home of that grotto, St. Mary Star of the Sea. This story has everything. We're talking shipwrecks, Spanish Jesuits, and a devastating fire that was probably arson. Yikes. And a stunning comeback story featuring an architect who could stretch a dollar like nobody's business. We'll dive into its secret life as a wartime hospital, and of course the history of that famous coral rock grotto that has locals lighting candles whenever a storm starts swirling. So is it faith, fake lore, or just plain luck? Let's find out. Happy Monday, everybody. I am Michelle with Fun and Key West, and I am so glad that you stopped by today for our episode of Historic Marker Monday. And today it's in the heart of hurricane season, and I really thought, let's go explore where legend has that as long as this place exists, no hurricane will directly hit Key West. So I've teased it a little bit, but where am I standing at? I am on Windsor Lane, specifically 1010 Windsor Lane, and this is the home to St. Mary, Star of the Sea, and it's the oldest Roman Catholic parish in South Florida. And this story has everything. Shipwreck-era keys, Spanish Jesuits, a devastating fire, a stunning rebuild, wartime nurses, a coral rock grotto that, like I said and I hinted to, locals visit whenever tropics start to swirl. And so let's dive in. Long before Duval Street became known as Duval Street and what it stands for today, missionaries were already moving into Key West. In the 1720s and the 1740s, Jesuit priests, often coming through Havana, tried to plant or start a mission in Key West. It didn't stick. The English raiders and general instability usually sent these missionaries back to where they came from. But the spark was lit. Somebody needed to establish a mission in Key West. So we fast forward to the 1840s, and Key West is growing. Federal installations are in place, and they're expanding. And the first recorded mass is said to occur in 1846 upstairs in the city hall at the foot of Duval Street. Soon after that, Father John F. Kirby arrives from Savannah, and on February 26, 1852, the island dedicates the first Catholic church at Duval and Eaton. It's the fifth Catholic church in all of Florida and the first in South Florida. So fitting the geography of the area, the the parish takes on the name of St. Mary Star of the Sea, or Stella Maris, and it's a traditional title for Mary as a guiding light to mariners. So that's very fitting for Key West. Did you know, though, and I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of these did you knows throughout this. In 1852 through 1853, the parish rang the bell 3 times a day, and the people of Key West at that time were very familiar with that mellow sound, and some of them almost timed their day to those sounds. In where I live up north, there's a church that plays, and it's a song, sing-song bells. So it's not chiming, but they usually sing songs. The bell does songs. But anyway, and it's usually around noon and 5 or 6 o'clock. And you find yourself, when you hear them, you go, oh, is it already noon? And I can imagine back in that time, as the people of Key West heard these bells, it set their day. It was, oh, it's this time already, because you hear those bells. It's amazing how sounds and all of that occur at a regular time throughout your day end up setting your schedule. As we know, though, in Key West in the 1850s, yellow fever hit really hard, and the parish was not spared from it. They lost several of their leaders and their fathers there, but the parish kept on going. Some of the priests, like I said, did not survive the yellow fever outbreak, but the parish continued through the strength of its parishioners. And in 1868, there was a huge turning point. 5 sisters from the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary arrived from Montreal, and they started the first Catholic school in Florida. And over time, it's become the longest running Catholic school. So it's they had a whole the constellation of schools. They had a whole under their one umbrella. They then had schools that were specifically to certain populations. So you had St. Joseph's School for boys. You had another that included education for the Cuban parishioners, and they expanded those out. And the convent there, because of the sisters, even added a steeple because they thought that the original design of the church needed a little bit of balance. So they added a steeple. And did you know that there was a Cuban chapel on Duval? And when its staffing started to diminish, it was moved and later used as the parish hall today. And when you go to visit St. Mary's, it's the parish gift shop. So you have this history within history as you go to visit. As with a lot of the buildings and a lot of history in Key West, there is a devastating fire. In September 20th, 1901, the original wooden structure of the church burns, and I'm sad to say that there is evidence that there was arson involved. But the parishioners rescued what they could. Some had found the charred candlesticks, stations of the cross, and a simple plaque that honored Mary, Sea of the Star. And so then the masses were moved to the Covenant Hall. And of course, with every Key West story that I talk about, there's a comeback. So on comes comeback. The cornerstone for the new building is set February 2nd, 1904. And you can see that there's a dedication right there on that cornerstone. And the architect, Brother Cornelius Otten, is a Jesuit craftsman. And let me tell you, he knew how to stretch a dollar. When you look at some of the expenses and how much it cost to build some of these buildings, especially back in 1904, you will be surprised to hear that they rebuilt that church for under $25,000. $24,444 is what the history of the church says it was built. It's incredible that it was built for that much. The church is then dedicated on August 20th of 1905. So they lay the cornerstone in 1904, and then about, 9 months later, they then dedicate the church. And architecturally, I'm telling you, it's a Key West classic. Outside, you have this eclectic American Victorian look, and you have profiles of early Renaissance revival, and you have the arches, and you have this Gothic look, and you have these louvered shutters and colored glass. And the stone bricks that the church is built out is actually poured concrete made from Lithic limestone, which was quarried right there on the site. And so the local rock becomes the church walls. And inside, think of some of the most beautiful churches that you've seen around the world and pictures that you've seen. There's a flat-barreled vault ceiling and pressed metal. You have cast iron columns and lots of light. And when they designed it, they knew that this location in Key West was not very climate friendly in terms of the heat. And so what they did is 6 of the 9 exterior bays or the walls of the structure are paired shuttered doors with arched glass. And so instead of having windows, these are doors that then open and create real cross ventilation. Plus, capacity-wise, you'll be amazed to know that St. Mary's seats comfortably 500 people and has space for hundreds more standing. So during peak season, it actually can hold 900 people. In 1907, the parish adds the Stella Maris stained glass window, which was crafted with Franz Mayer of Munich. And it's about 12 feet by 8 inches tall and 6 feet wide. And what's beautiful about this is it glows all day in the southern light, and it becomes that visual signature of the church. And a lot of the locals started calling it the cathedral at that point. Not the official title. You get that vibe. It just looks like it should be called the cathedral. And the front doors are also made out of Dade County pine. And you're going to see that throughout the Keys. It's virtually extinct timber now, but it's virtually termite resistant. And so these doors are now made out of Dade County pine. So if you go to the cathedral, be sure to look at all of these details. Look at those louvered walls. Look at the Dade County pine. Look at the beautiful architecture of the building. Now, as with a lot of the buildings in Key West, there's a wartime connection. When the USS Maine explodes in 1898, the Covenant of Mary Immaculate became the Key West Covenant Hospital almost overnight. Classrooms were turned into wards, elegant parlors became a pharmacy, and the second floor became operating rooms. There were about 500 beds, and about 600 wounded were treated there during the Spanish-American War. The Maine chaplain, the USS Maine's chaplain, recovered at the Covenant and celebrated Mass with a recovered chalice from his crew. So there was a beautiful image of faith meeting history, and it all came full circle. Now, St. Mary's is known for the Our Lady of Lourdes Grotto. And this came to be in May 25th of 1922 during the Feast of the Ascension. Sister Louise Gabriel dedicated Our Lady of Lourdes Grotto. She had survived 3 major hurricanes since she arrived in Key West in 1897. So over the last, 25 years that she'd been in Key West, she had survived 3 major hurricanes. And she wanted a place where the community could come to pray for protection. And so the grotto was built out of coral rock and that was gathered on the grounds around the island and everything. So it had this home feel. This was from the earth of Key West. And it was funded and built by friends and neighbors. And there's a local tradition that as long as the grotto stands, Key West won't experience a full brunt of a hurricane. Now today, when that cone of uncertainty leans towards the Keys, people, they come to the grotto, they light candles, they pray the rosary, and there's even an inlaid stone rosary path with bronze plaques naming the mysteries and gather for Mass around Our Lady of the Grotto. If you get a chance to explore the grounds, be sure to check out that inlaid rosary. Even if you're not Catholic, it's an amazing homage to faith and the ability of prayer and the belief in prayer. And what's interesting is, since then, Key West really hasn't had a direct hit of a hurricane. There's been some massive close calls and some really debilitating and very destructive forces that came through. But the grotto still stands. And TV crews often will broadcast from there just for the lore of that. And Sister Gabriel served in Key West for 51 years, and she's remembered as a lamp of faith. So over the years, the parish has transitioned from Jesuit care to the Archdiocese of Miami, and that occurred in 1970. And it's also undergone a lot of major restorations. There was one in the late 1980s, and by 1990, by 1992, the church is actually listed on the National and State Historical Site, so it's a preserved and protected place. You have all kinds of devotional life that's very active on the grounds. You can look for the Infant of Prague statue gifted in gratitude to the church by a mother whose 3 sons returned safely from World War II. And the intention book nearby often holds prayers from and for military families. As you wander the grounds, you're going to see that there is not only the church connection, but the maritime connection, the multicultural connection, and the resiliency and the deep communal effect of this building, and the hope and the faith that it brought to the island. So St. Mary's Star of the Sea is over on Windsor, and I hope you get a chance to check it out. If you've checked it out, let me know. Say, hey, Michelle, this is what I found fascinating. This is what I loved. Did you attend Mass? Did you check out anything did you learn something new and when you were wandering through the grounds? As always, if you're watching me live, let me know. Send me your comments. If you're listening on our podcast, thank you so much. Send me a DM and say, Michelle, this is what I found fascinating. So here's what I'm going to say. It's Historic Marker Monday. Thank you for sticking with me through this one about St. Mary's Star of the Sea. I think this is a beautiful place, and it should be checked out at least once or twice whenever you're in Key West. There are a lot more of these historic markers, and you can check those out over at FunInKeyWest.com. There is a self-guided historical marker tour over there. Plus, you can sign up for our book club every month. We explore a book that has some sort of Key West connection. And you can also grab our happy hour list that gets you on our newsletter. Keeps you in the know of things happening in Key West and with Fun in Key West. With that, I'm going to do the thing I always say. If you like this and you found something fun and entertaining and you loved nerding out with me on Key West history, share this with a friend, like what we're doing, and tell everybody about it to come check it out. You guys have a great Monday, and we'll talk to you later. So there you have it, the story of St. Mary's Star of the Sea, a building made from the island itself, holding centuries of faith, resilience, and maybe just a little bit of hurricane-repelling magic. Next time you're wandering near Windsor Lane, you have to go check it out. Walk the grounds, see the beautiful inlaid rosary path, and decide for yourself if that grotto has a special connection to the weather. Even if you're not a believer, the history and the sheer beauty of the place are absolutely worth the visit. Thank you so much for nerding out on Key West history with me today. If you enjoyed this little trip back in time, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It ensures you won't miss a single story, and honestly, it just makes my day. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and always read that plaque. You never know what you'll find out.